I was looking for a job, preferably for a private caregiver. When I saw the ad online, it seemed perfect. Elderly woman in need of assistance with daily activities. Live-in preferred. The address was close to the city, and the number belonged to a woman named Mrs. Clay. I called her that same afternoon. Her voice was shaky but polite. She said her daughter had moved abroad and she needed help. She asked if I could come by the next morning. I didn't think twice. Her voice made me trust her, the way old ladies sound when they've been alone for too long. The next day I took the first bus and arrived around 9 a.m. The neighborhood looked quiet, too quiet. No traffic, no kids, not even dogs barking. The house was at the end of a dead-end street, old and half-painted. When she opened the door, she looked just like I expected. Fragile, pale, thin. She smiled with missing teeth and waved me in. The living room smelled like medicine and wet carpet. She said her knees hurt too much to move around, so she needed help cooking and cleaning. She offered me tea. I said yes. I shouldn't have. She went to the kitchen and I sat at the table waiting. My bag was next to my chair, still zipped. I remember that clearly. I heard cups clinking, water boiling, then footsteps that weren't hers. Heavier, steady. When I turned around, a man stepped out from behind the hallway. His face was dirty, his eyes cold and wide. Before I could even speak, he swung something, maybe a pipe, against the side of my head. I fell. Everything went black for a second. I remember the taste of blood in my mouth and the woman's voice screaming something, but it was distant. Then he grabbed my arms and dragged me across the floor. My vision kept fading in and out. I couldn't fight back, not even scream. When I woke up, I was in the back seat of a car. My wrists were tied. The woman was gone. The man was driving fast. Trees blurred through the window, no buildings, no traffic, just endless road. I asked him where he was taking me. He didn't answer. I kicked the door, but it didn't move. He looked at me through the mirror once. I'll never forget that look. He didn't blink. After what felt like hours, the car stopped. He pulled me out, still tied, and carried me into another house. This one smelled like rot. He threw me down a short flight of stairs. My shoulder hit the floor hard. I couldn't see much, only a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, flickering every few seconds. The walls were concrete, stained and wet. There was a mattress on the floor, dirty and torn. He would come down every few hours, sometimes to throw food, sometimes to stare at me. Once he asked if I had family. I said yes. He smiled and said, "Good." Then he left. At night I heard other voices. One of them was younger, maybe another man. They whispered upstairs, arguing, laughing. Sometimes I heard a door slam. Once I heard someone crying. I never saw who it was. One night he came down carrying a flashlight and a bucket of water. He made me wash myself while he stood watching. I tried to look away, but he grabbed my hair and forced my face into the water. He said I should be grateful. When I coughed and gasped, he smiled. Then he left again. Days passed. My wrists were swollen from the rope. I started to realize there was no escape. Until one morning, I noticed the basement door wasn't locked. It was early. I could hear them arguing upstairs. I moved quietly, untied my ankles using a sharp piece of metal from the bed frame. My hands hurt so much I almost fainted, but I kept going. I pushed the door slowly. It opened with a creak. I froze, waiting for footsteps. None came. I climbed the stairs step by step. The kitchen was empty. The window above the sink was open. I could smell fresh air for the first time in days. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like my chest would explode. I went to the back door. It wasn't locked either. I pushed it open and ran. Outside there was nothing. No houses, no people, just open fields and dirt roads. The air was hot, dry. I kept running until I couldn't breathe. I saw a line of trees and thought maybe there was a road behind them. When I reached them, I looked back. The house was far, small in the distance. I thought I'd made it. Then I heard the sound of a car engine. The car came fast, kicking up dust. I tried to hide behind the trees, but he saw me. He got out of the car and started walking toward me with a crowbar in his hand. I ran again, but he caught up. He hit my back first, then my legs. I fell face first into the dirt. I screamed, but no one could hear. He didn't say a word while hitting me. When I stopped moving, he crouched down next to me and said I ruined everything. I didn't understand what he meant. He dragged me back to the car by my hair and threw me inside. My vision kept fading again. Back in the basement, he tied me to a pole. No food that day, no water. The next morning, he came in with another man, older, with gloves on. They whispered things I couldn't hear. The older man stared at me for a long time and said I should have stayed quiet. They left me there again. That night I heard them laughing upstairs. I heard bottles breaking, music playing faintly. I stayed awake until morning, shaking. When he came down again, I expected another beating. Instead, he sat on the floor next to me. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked tired. He said someone had paid for me. I didn't understand at first. Paid for what? He said it was for my release, that I shouldn't have seen the house because now they couldn't just let me go. He put a gun to my head. I froze. I didn't cry or beg, I just waited for it to end. But he didn't pull the trigger. He lowered it slowly. He said he wasn't a killer, that another man would have done it without thinking. Then he leaned closer and whispered, "If someone comes knocking at my door, I'm gonna regret letting you live. If that happens, someone will knock your door. And you know what? They are not going to doubt, understand?" He drove me out that night. My hands were still tied and my eyes blindfolded. We didn't talk. I didn't even know what direction we were going. After maybe an hour, he stopped the car on the side of a long, empty road. He got out, opened my door, untied my hands, and pushed me out. Then he drove away. I lay there for a while staring at the stars. I could barely move. My body hurt everywhere, but I got up and started walking. I don't know how long it took, but eventually I saw lights. A gas station, maybe 2 kilometers away. The police found me sitting on the ground near the station. I couldn't even explain what happened at first. They said I was in shock. They took me to the hospital, asked questions I couldn't answer. Where the house was, how many men there were, what they looked like. I didn't know. Everything was a blur. Today I remember a little more, but even so, I won't tell the police anything about what I experienced. It's not worth it. I don't want to risk my family's life. This story is based on John Edward Robinson, known as the internet's first serial killer, who was an American murderer active between the 1980s and 2000. He lured victims using fake job offers, personal ads, and online chat rooms, often promising work or companionship. Once he gained their trust, he manipulated, exploited, and ultimately killed them. Police discovered several of his victims' bodies stored in barrels on his property. Robinson was arrested in 2000 and later sentenced to death for multiple murders, marking one of the earliest known cases of using the internet to commit serial crimes.
I started this job 3 months ago. Night driving. Simple stuff. I pick up clients, drive them to wherever they say, and don't ask questions. That's the rule. No questions, no problems. That's what the guy who hired me told me. The pay was good enough to make me ignore how vague it all sounded. I didn't sign anything. They just told me where to go and when. Always at night. Always in black cars that weren't mine. The passengers were strange. Always men in suits. Never women, never kids. No one ever spoke. They just got in, gave me an address, and stared out the window or at their phones like I didn't exist. I tried small talk a couple of times, but They'd look at me like I'd broken some sacred rule, so I stopped. I learned to drive in silence. Still, every night felt off. The way they acted, it wasn't normal. Their faces were too blank, their voices too calm when they gave the addresses. And sometimes when the car stopped at red lights, I'd feel eyes on me. I'd look up through the mirror and one of them would be staring directly at me. No emotion at all, just staring. It made my stomach twist every time. But I needed the money. Rent was late, bills were piling up, and this was the only job that didn't care about my record. So I kept driving, pretending not to notice how wrong everything felt. They called me just after midnight for a pickup outside an office building downtown. When I got there, 2 men in suits were standing on the curb. Between them was a man sitting in a wheelchair, his head tilted slightly to one side, dark glasses covering his eyes even though it was pitch black outside. One of the men waved me over like I was a cab. They opened the back door and lifted the man out of the chair. His body hung limp between them like he was drunk or asleep. They sat him in the back seat, adjusted his coat, and shut the door without saying a word to me. Then one of them leaned in and said, low and sharp, "Drive to 77 Willow Street. No stops." There was something off about the way he said it. His tone wasn't a request. It was a warning. I nodded and started the engine. The 2 men stayed on the sidewalk, watching until the car turned the corner. I kept my eyes forward, hands tight on the wheel. The first thing I noticed about the man in the back was his smell. It hit me halfway down the block. Cheap perfume. The kind that burns your nose. Strong enough to make me roll the window down a crack. I glanced in the mirror. He was sitting straight, facing forward, his hands on his knees, still, not breathing heavily, not moving at all, just sitting there. The route was long, 30 minutes through quiet streets with barely any traffic. Every minute stretched. The man in the back didn't move once. I tried to convince myself he was asleep, but there was no rhythm to his breathing, no sound at all, just that perfume, like the inside of a cheap funeral home. At one point, I cleared my throat and said something. "Sorry about the traffic. It's usually lighter this time of night." Nothing, not a word. I looked again in the mirror, hoping for even the smallest reaction. His head hadn't moved, but under the dark glasses, could have sworn he was looking straight into the reflection. Felt it. Like the second I looked away, he'd blink or smile or something worse. The longer I drove, the more I started to shake. My fingers slipped on the steering wheel from sweat. I thought about pulling over, just for a second, to breathe. But the words, "no stops," echoed in my head. The company didn't play around. I heard stories about drivers who broke the rules. None of them worked there anymore. Then came the sound, a low, broken mumble from the back seat. I froze. It wasn't a word, more like a moan, soft and wet, like someone trying to speak underwater. I looked in the mirror again, and for the first time he moved. His jaw shifted slightly, trembling. I slowed down just enough to glance over my shoulder. He was shaking. His hands twitched on his knees, fingers jerking like he was fighting to move. His lips parted, drool sliding down his chin. I gripped the wheel tighter and forced myself to keep driving. My heartbeat drowned out the sound of the tires. I couldn't take it anymore. The sounds were getting louder, whispers maybe, words I couldn't make out. I leaned forward, pretending to adjust the radio, but my eyes went to the mirror again. His head turned. Just a little, enough for me to see his mouth move. It wasn't random mumbling now. It was like he was trying to form sentences, but his tongue wasn't working right. His teeth clicked together. His head twitched forward, slow at first, then faster, until his chin almost hit his chest. He was convulsing, softly, like something was crawling under his skin. My stomach flipped. I wanted to stop the car. I wanted to open the door and run. But that voice from my boss, "no stops," stuck in my head like a nail. My job was to drive. That's it. Then he made a sound I'll never forget. A laugh, or maybe it was a cough. Sharp, dry, and too human to ignore. I pressed harder on the gas. The faster I went, the louder he got. His breath came in short bursts. Then, suddenly, silence again. I didn't want to look, but I did. His head was up now, perfectly straight. His glasses reflected the dashboard lights, but behind the reflection, I could see movement. His eyes. They weren't looking forward anymore. They were aimed directly at me. I started crying without realizing it. Quietly, trying not to make a sound, I couldn't tell what was worse, the silence or the breathing behind me. Every second felt like it stretched longer than the last. When I finally saw the street sign for Willow, I almost screamed in relief. The address was at the end of a cul-de-sac. No lights, no houses, just a big metal gate and 2 black cars parked outside. The same kind of men were waiting there. Dark suits, blank faces. I stopped the car, put it in park, and tried to steady my breathing. They walked over slowly. One of them tapped the window. I rolled it down, shaking so hard I could barely move. I told them something was wrong with the man in the back. I didn't want to turn around to show them, but I had to. I looked and saw the man jerking slightly, mumbling again. His glasses had slipped down, showing pale eyes rolled halfway back. One of the men opened the back door, glanced at him, and his face twisted in anger. The other guy stepped forward, grabbed the man by the throat, and started squeezing. There was no hesitation, no shouting, just the sound of cracking bones. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The driver's seat felt like a coffin. The man in the suit dropped the body to the ground like trash. Then he pulled out his phone and started yelling at someone. "He was alive! You told me he was processed!" He slammed the phone shut, breathing hard. He turned to me, eyes full of rage. Before I could react, he reached in, grabbed the back of my head, and slammed it against the steering wheel. My ears rang, everything spinning. He leaned in close, whispering through his teeth. "You didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. Drive when we call. That's all you do." I nodded, barely able to see through the blood in my eyes. I don't remember driving home. The next thing I knew, I was in bed, still wearing my work clothes. My phone buzzed at noon. A message from the company. "Pick up at 1 a.m. Don't be late." No explanation, no apology, just that. That night I showed up like always. Same car, same smell of cheap air freshener. My head still hurt, and the dried blood on my hairline itched under my hat. The streets were empty, again. Every shadow looked like those men waiting for me. The passengers didn't talk, didn't look at me, didn't act like anything had happened. But I couldn't stop seeing that man's neck snapping in front of me. Every time I blinked, I saw it again. The way his body twitched once before going limp, and the way the other man didn't even flinch. Now, every time I drive, I feel like someone's in the back seat, even when it's empty. Sometimes I check the mirror and swear I see him sitting there, head tilted, glasses on. That same damn perfume filling the car. It's been 2 months since that day. I still drive for them. I can't quit. Every night they text me new addresses, new passengers, new names. No explanations. I just drive. It was my first night working as a security guard. I didn't even want the guy, I needed the money. The place was some kind of indoor amusement center, full of arcade machines, little restaurants, and a big stage with animatronic animals. The company was reopening after years of being closed. They called it Funland. It didn't look like much fun to me. My shift started at midnight. The manager, a short guy with oily hair, gave me the usual tour. Restrooms, exits, security room, break room. Everything smelled like dust and plastic. When he left, I locked the door behind him and sat down in front of the monitors. There were 8 cameras. Most showed empty halls and rooms filled with arcade machines. Nothing seemed out of place. I checked my phone. No signal. Figures. The walls were thick concrete. They gave me a landline to use in case of emergencies. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. For the first 2 hours, nothing happened. I drank half a bottle of warm soda and started feeling dizzy from boredom. My eyes drifted between the screens. Then, somewhere in the corner of one camera, I thought I saw movement. But I figured it was probably just the monitor flickering. Around 2:30 a.m., I leaned back in my chair, yawning. Then, I noticed it again. Movement in camera 4, the one facing the stage. I leaned closer. One of the animatronics, the bear, wasn't in the same position it had been in earlier. It had its head slightly turned now, pointing toward the hallway. At first, I told myself maybe the cleaning crew moved it before closing. I tried switching to other cameras. Everything else looked normal. The food court, the hallways, the back exit, all empty. I went back to camera 4. The bear was gone. I froze. I didn't hear footsteps, no noise, just the low hum of the monitors and my own breathing. I flipped through the cameras fast, trying to find it. Then I saw it. Someone or something wearing a bear costume, standing near the arcade machines. For a moment I thought maybe it was a prank, but the place was closed. Nobody was supposed to be here. I grabbed the landline and called the manager. No dial tone. The line had been cut. I pulled out my phone again. Still no signal. The anxiety hit me in waves. Whoever was inside had disabled everything. I got up from the chair and locked the security room door. My hands were shaking. The room had no windows, just a wooden door and a bank of monitors. I checked the camera again. There were more of them now. 3 figures. One dressed as a fox, another as a bird, and the bear again. They were walking through the hallways like they knew exactly where to go. I tried to calm myself. Maybe it was just a group of vandals in costumes. Maybe I was overreacting. But when I zoomed in, I saw the fabric of the suits, dirty, torn, and soaked around the mouths. They weren't new costumes. I switched cameras to follow their movement. One of them stopped and stared directly into a camera, its head tilted slowly like it was listening. The others spread out. One was heading toward my section. I stood completely still. My heartbeat felt like hammer blows in my chest. I turned off the monitor lights and waited in the dark. Then came a faint noise from the hallway. Soft footsteps. Then a dragging sound. Something brushed against the door. They started banging on the wooden door, at first softly, then harder. Each hit made the hinges shake. I grabbed a piece of metal pipe that was leaning against the wall. The only thing between me and them was that door. Then, the pounding stopped. Silence. I waited, listening. Then I heard muffled laughter. It wasn't robotic, it was human. When I turned the monitors back on, I saw one of them standing right outside the security room, holding something long and shiny. A crowbar. The others were walking around the building, turning off lights as they moved. They knew the layout. They were hunting me. I looked for another exit. There was a ventilation shaft near the corner, but it was too small to crawl through. I could only stay hidden and hope they got bored. I watched one camera as the fox-headed figure knelt and looked straight into it again. It waved, Then, the screen went black. The next minutes felt endless. I sat on the floor, gripping the pipe, breathing quietly. Then the lights in the room flickered. The power didn't go out completely, just enough to make the room pulse in darkness. I heard something outside, like metal scraping against the floor. The first hit came hard. The door bent inward with a loud crack. Another hit, then another. I screamed for them to stop, but they didn't. When the door finally burst open, I backed into a corner. 3 figures walked in, breathing heavily inside the suits. One of them spoke, voice muffled. "Dude, is he holding a weapon?" The other one laughed.
"You're not supposed to fight back, man. You're the guard. Haven't you played Five Nights at Freddy's?"
I stared at them, confused. My brain couldn't process what they were saying. I shouted that I didn't know what they were talking about, to leave me alone and to get out. They started laughing harder. One of them pulled off his mask. A teenage boy, maybe 17. His face was red and sweaty. The moment they lowered their guard, I swung the pipe and hit the fox mask guy in the side of the head. He fell, screaming. I didn't wait. I shoved the other 2 and ran. I sprinted through the hallway, slipping on something sticky. My shoulder hit the wall. I kept running, hearing footsteps behind me, the heavy stomps of the suits. They caught me near the exit doors. One tackled me from behind, and I crashed to the floor. My vision blurred. I felt kicks landing on my ribs, on my arm, on my back. I turned and grabbed one of their legs, pulling him down. He hit the ground hard. I found a loose tile near me and smashed it against his head. He stopped moving. The others froze. They didn't go for me. They crouched beside their friend, shaking him, panicking. I crawled away, every breath stabbing my chest. They didn't chase me this time. I got to my feet and ran out into the parking lot. I didn't stop until I reached the main road, waving down a passing car. The driver took one look at me covered in blood, breathing like I was dying, and called the police. At the hospital, they said I had 2 cracked ribs and a concussion. My wife and kids came to see me. My daughter, about 10, said she knew what those kids were pretending to be.
"They're from that game, Dad. Five Nights at Freddy's. The guard always gets attacked by the animatronics."
I didn't know what to say. My body was shaking, not from the pain, but from realizing those kids were playing out a fantasy. They wanted to make it real. Some detectives knocked at my door some days later. They told me they found the blood, but no bodies. All the footage was destroyed and the place was a mess. I never went back to that place, and I never will.